All right, so we are looking at long division now, and this is our second in kind of a quick blast of self-paced learning today. And so again, I'm not going to be on my slides. I'm just going to work through the notes with you. As always, make sure to write in problems as you see them appear on the note sheet so that you have reference back to them later on. So this first problem, we're just going to explore. We're going to use long division to find the quotient. We're going to start it with this 92 divided by 2. So first thing we do is we want to set up our problem. We have 92 underneath. We have 2 on the side. And we just kind of focus in on that first digit there. How many times does 2 go into 9? And it'll go in 4 times. Now, if we do 4 times 2 to check and see what's left over, that will give us 8. And we're going to subtract that to see what's left over. So 9 minus 8 gives me 1. I'm going to drag down this 2 here. And now we're looking at 12 to see how many times does 2 go into 12. And in this case, 2 goes into 12 6 times. We can go ahead and do 6 times 2 to see and check if we have any remainder. That'll give us 12 as well. If we subtract that out, we get 0. And so there's our answer. 46 is our final answer, and that shows up on top. Now, let's try applying the same step and process to a polynomial. And this first time through, I just want you to follow along. Later in our notes, you'll notice that we will define our steps. We'll go through some example problems for you to try this on your own. But let's just start by exploring this idea. So we're going to set it up just like before. Okay, we'll put our dividend x squared plus 5x plus 6 underneath our long division sign. We'll put our divisor out on the left. And the first thing we want to do is just focus on the leading terms. It gets really confusing if we focus on anything else, just because there's a lot going on. If we focus on these leading terms and think, what times x gives me x squared? And you don't have to write that if you don't need to. We should know that the answer is x there. I'm going to write it up above here. We'll see why that's important later on. But it is important to kind of stack it in the middle above the 5x. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take that x that we use, so x, and we're going to multiply it with our dividend, that x plus 3. And what we're doing here is we're trying to see, okay, how far did that get us? We multiplied x times x plus 3. How far does that get us? If we distribute in, we should get x squared plus 3x. And just like we did in our integer problem, we are going to subtract this. And it's key that when we subtract it, we subtract the entire thing, right? Not just that first term. So we get x squared minus x squared gives us 0. So we can leave that alone. And 5x minus 3x will give us 2x. Then just like before, in our integer problem, we can drag down this plus 6. And then we kind of repeat that process where we're looking at the leading terms. So we look at the x out in front of our divisor. We look at the 2x out in front of our new dividend that we're looking for. And we think about, all right, what times x equals 2x? And in this case, it would be a positive 2. So we're going to add 2 there. We can then check to see how far that got us. So we'll multiply it again back against our divisor. 2 times x plus 3. Distribute that in. We'll get 2x plus 6. And we are going to subtract that to just see what's left over. And again, make sure to subtract the whole thing. So 2x minus 2x is 0. 6 minus 6 is 0. We get a remainder of 0. Therefore, x plus 2 must be our answer. So at any point, pause your screen and go back to that if the step was confusing there. We are going to kind of reiterate it, have some time to practice. But again, pace through this at your own pace. Make sure that you are checking stuff and asking questions if need be. So moving on to the definitions and steps. First thing I want to do is just kind of redefine what our different terms were that I used there. So the first thing I want to define is the divisor. That is what we're dividing by. It goes on the left side of our long division sign. Then inside we have our dividend. And on top we have our quotient, and that is our answer. And the reason I want to define those is just so we have something to reference in our steps here, which I'm going to unhighlight. And we'll make those blue so you can see them pop up. Here are the steps that we walked through. So go ahead and pause your screen, get these down on our notes. But the first thing we do with every problem is set up the long division. Then we're going to focus on those first terms and start building up that quotient, focusing on the first terms. Then we take what we used, multiply it back against the divisor. That's the thing on the outside. That's what we're dividing by. We'll subtract our answer from the line above and repeat until we're done. And the more problems you can get through today on this, the better. Building in that muscle memory is really going to firm up this process. So once you have those definitions and steps down, let's scroll down to example 1 and let's just start working through this. So I'm going to zoom in just a little more. So on my last notes, I noticed I was definitely running out of space. So we set up our problem. We're going to put x squared plus 5x plus 6 on the bottom. Put x plus 3 on the side. That's our divisor. And our answer is going to show up top. So we focus on those first terms, x and x squared. And we think about, all right, what times x gives me x squared? In this case, it is x. Okay, we're going to then test to see how far that got us. So if I go x times x plus 3, that gives me x squared plus 3x. And I'm now realizing that this is the same example that we worked through in our explore problem. So let me scratch that out, skip example 1. Let's see how this shows up in example 2. Okay, my apologies there. I will be better next time. So scroll over to example 2. Let's do our setup. X squared plus 8x minus 20 divided by x minus 2. So we focus on the first term, the x squared and the x. We try to figure out something times x equals x squared. We know that should be just an x there. We're going to multiply it back. So we get x times x minus 2. Distribute it in. And that gives us x squared minus 2x. We're going to use subtraction to see what's left over. If we do x squared minus x squared, that gets us 0. If we do 8x minus a negative 2x, and remember that's a negative sign there, that'll bring us to 10x. We'll drag down that negative 20, minus 20, and that is going to be what we target next. So we focus on that first term again, 10x and the x, and we would need to multiply x by 10 to get it there. Oh, let me write that in green, plus 10. And then we want to check and see what's left over. So if I do 10 times x minus 2, distribute that in, we'll get 10x minus 20. We can subtract to see what's left over. And that will get us to 0. So we have a remainder of 0. We have solved our problem. The answer is x plus 10. Now, final example, you'll notice that we have a third degree polynomial. And this is where it's really useful because we can't factor these on our own. So if we use the remainder theorem, find out that x plus 3 is a factor, Then we can use long division to get this down to a second degree polynomial and something that we can handle and factor on paper a lot easier. But it's just going to set up the same way where our x plus 3 goes on the outside. Set up our long division underneath with x to the third plus 5x squared plus 7x plus 3. And all this is going to do is add one extra step to what's going on. Okay, we start it the same way. We look at those first terms, x and x to the third. Okay, we're going to have x squared. We distribute that back in. If we go x squared times x plus 3, okay, that's going to get us to x to the third plus 3x squared. And that's going to be what we subtract. Make sure to subtract that whole thing. That gets us 2x squared. And we're going to drag down that plus 7x. And if you want to drag down the plus 3 as well, that's fine. And actually, I'll do it right now just to make sure that we include it all the way through. But if you want to wait until that next step to drag it down, that's fine. Then we're going to focus on our first term, so 2x squared and that x. We should know that it's going to be 2x that gets us there, so plus a 2x. And if I distribute back that 2x times x plus 3, I will get 2x squared plus 6x. That's going to be what I subtract to see what's left over. We'll be left over with, this will be 1x or just x because 7 minus 6. And that 3 will drag down, plus 3 at the end. And now we should notice that we're in a situation where, hey, our divisor, x plus 3, is the same as what we're trying to divide into. Hopefully we know what that means, that the next thing should be 1. But let's reiterate that process again. We focus on those first terms. So focusing on those first terms. And we should know that to multiply something by x, to get x, we just need to multiply it by 1. We check that out. We do 1 times x plus 3. That gives us just x plus 3. That's what we're going to subtract. Get a remainder of 0. And so that is our problem. So again, check these notes off with Mr. W. Have a quick conversation with him, then move into those practice problems and exit ticket.